Hello everyone, welcome to this live stream where we are going to explore and discover together Swift Data. So Swift Data is a new iOS framework that was announced just yesterday at WWDC 2023. So what we are doing today is what I've called, I guess, an exploration live stream, in the sense that it's going to be very different from my previous live streams, which were thought of as training sessions, which meant that I had prepared some content and I knew what I was talking about. This time is completely different because I haven't prepared anything and I don't know what I'm talking about because everything is super new. This makes it very exciting, but I just want to say it in case you followed my previous live stream, there will be a little bit of a difference in how things are driven and well put together. Also, one thing I want to say straight from the beginning is that I am doing this live stream the day after the keynote using the first beta of Xcode 15. This means that if you're watching the replay months or maybe years into the future, keep that in mind. What you're going to see might be with APIs that were deprecated or refactored in the meantime. We might encounter bugs that will have been fixed in the future. It's important to keep that in mind, and especially because the most viewed videos on my channel is a video about async await, but using the beta version of async await and with features that never made it into the actual released version. So I really want to give this warning early on. Okay, I see a few people in the chat. I see Jan, I see Frank, I see Moro. Welcome. I hope you're going to enjoy this new live stream. So what I did, I guess, let's start by introduction. Let's start by having a look at what Apple says about Swift Data. So I'm on a documentation page. You have the link of it in the description of the video. It's the first link. So this is not the full documentation. It's more like a page that tries to recap why Swift Data is great. That's basically the goal of this page. But let's start with it, this way we can get a high-level picture of what Swift Data is all about. And I hope I'm not going to say Swift UI by mistake. We're talking about Swift Data today. So Swift Data makes it easy to persist data using declarative code. So we can see the two keywords, persistence, because it's about persisting data, and declarative, so with a syntax that is much more aligned with Swift UI than what raw core data would be. And you will understand just a bit later why I'm saying raw core data here. So you can query and filter data using regular Swift code, and it's designed to integrate seamlessly with Swift UI. We're going to see a few examples of this just after. So how do we create models with okay, so you create models with Swift. Unlike core data, where you would have your model file. I don't remember the name, but it's some kind of XML file that you need to edit with the like ad hoc inspector. Here it's very different because you model your data using regular Swift type with @model. So @model is one of the new Swift macros which basically allow you to do code generation. So it basically takes the class and adds code to it. So it's a pretty powerful new addition to Swift and one of the backbones of Swift Data, just like property wrappers were one of the backbone of Swift UI when it was released already 4 years ago. With no additional files or tools to manage, so unlike core data, Swift Data can automatically infer many relationships, and you can use clear declarations like @attribute unique to describe constraints. So here the fact that the name should be unique across all instances, and you rely on Swift Data to enforce this rule. Like Swift UI, the source of truth is in your code, so we can see this common DNA between the two frameworks. Automatic persistence, of course, that's kind of the goal of a persistent framework. So Swift Data builds a custom schema using your models and maps their fields efficiently to the underlying storage. Objects managed by Swift Data are fetched from the database when needed and automatically saved at the right moment with no additional work on your part. You can also take full control using the Model Context API. So I guess, and from what I understand, Swift Data is not a replacement to core data, but more of a Swift layer around core data. So I guess by default, the database must still be an SQLite database. But we'll be able to check this with the simulator a bit later. integration with SwiftUI, of course. So you use @query in your SwiftUI view to fetch data. So @query is kind of the equivalent of @fetchRequest when you would use core data in SwiftUI. SwiftData and SwiftUI work together to provide live updates to your views when the underlying data changes, with no need to manually refresh the results. So a very SwiftUI philosophy where when the model changes, the body is automatically recomputed. This part got me very excited, so the Swift native predicates, because my first not big, but my first open source work that got a bit of traction was a framework called KeePathKit, which was all about how to implement this kind of syntax. And back then I was using operator overloading. So I was overloading this operator to generate a type-safe predicate. But now with macros in Swift, we can go even further. And so SwiftData offers us the possibility to query and filter your data using expressions that are type checked by the compiler, so you can catch typos and mistakes during development. So very different than for instance, I think it's called an NS fetch descriptor in core data. If you make a typo on the name of a property, since everything is stringly typed, you get no error at compile time, but you do get an error at runtime. Here it's different. You can see that everything is type safe, everything is written in Swift code, and so everything is checked by the compiler at compile time. And these predicates provide compile time errors when your expressions can be mapped to the underlying storage engine. CloudKit syncing, so your data can be stored in files using document group and synced via iCloud Drive. So you can use CloudKit to sync data between devices. So I haven't used core data for a long time, but last time I looked at it, but it was like it was a long time ago. It was like 2017 maybe. I remember people saying that CloudKit sync was not super reliable, so I'm curious to see what people will have to say about it. And finally, compatible with core data. So SwiftData uses the proven storage architecture of core data, so you can use both in the same app with the same underlying storage. When you're ready, Xcode can convert your core data models into classes for use with SwiftData. So this is quite an important topic, because first it tells us that SwiftData doesn't start from scratch. It's a wrapper around core data, which in a way is a good thing, because if the wrapper is well made, it's always nice to know that we are able to rely on something that is very battle tested and that has a lot of resources should we encounter an issue. And also it shows that we can kind of like mix and match SwiftData and core data in the same app. And so if you're working on an existing app that relies on core data, it's definitely a good thing, because I guess this means that you will be able to implement maybe new screens in SwiftUI using SwiftData, while older screens still use UIKit and core data, but both query the same data store. Someone is saying your arms look too slim today. So interesting thing. It's a different camera point of view that I have. It's not the same camera than usual, and this camera is kind of like at a downwards angle, and so it makes my my arm look extremely skinny. But be assured that I am in good health. There is no issue on that. It's more of like an optical illusion, and if I can find a way to improve on this, I would kind of like it, because I kind of noticed it also when I was doing my test, but for now it's more of an optical thing. It's very crazy, like when you go from one lens to another, how like the proportion of your body and of your face completely change. And the fact that I have a black t-shirt also and I have a very clear skin definitely doesn't help. So let's get into the meat of the topic with Xcode. So like I told you, I have installed Xcode 15, Xcode 15 beta 1, so the one that was made available just yesterday. Let's create a new project. I'm gonna make the window the right size so that you can see it on the live stream. Perfect. So you see I'm creating an iOS app like this. Okay. So how do I call it? Let me call it Discovering Swift Data. Something like this. Okay. So interface SwiftUI, language Swift, and you can see in storage we have this new option of SwiftData to create an app template with the Swift data stack already available. Interestingly, if you switch to Storyboard, you can see that you don't have Swift data available, which kind of makes sense because Swift data is only meant to work with Swift UI, I guess. So that's why we don't have this template when we use storyboards, even though, as we've seen, when we create a Swift data app, we should still be able to put UIKit views inside of it and then use core data in these UIKit views. So Eduardo, you're saying, is it necessary to download the beta to try Swift data? I would say yes. I would say yes because it's part of the, I think it's iOS 16 only. I haven't checked, but I think it's iOS 16 only. So yes, I guess you need to download the latest Xcode, and also you will need the latest update of Ventura to run the latest Xcode. I discovered it because yesterday I was using my other laptop to share some content about Xcode 15, and when I downloaded it on my other laptop for the live stream, it wouldn't open, and I had to update my laptop to the latest version of Ventura real quick and hope that everything would work. Everything did work because otherwise I wouldn't be doing this stream right now, but you will also need to update to the latest version of Ventura. Okay, so we are good. Swift UI, Swift data. Let's go with next. So I'm just going to put it on my desktop. And we have our project being created. I'm gonna get rid of this thing. Let's see. I want to get rid of the preview, but that's not how you do it. Okay, you do it more like that. All right, so let's see what we have. So we have, let's go to the top level. So we have our app, so discovering Swift data app. We can see that we have basically the same thing done with a standard, Swift UI app. The only difference is that we have a model container being attached to the window group. So we're going to take a look at what this model container stands for. And I see a few new people in the chat. Hello, Augustin. Hello, Walid. So let's see. Let's do Alt. Whoa, it's much bigger now, and it's really big, and it's writing outside of my streaming window. So I'm going to try and do a command click. Maybe it will be better. Okay, yeah, it's better. At least you can read it. That makes it better. So lots of things here. So this modifier, so model container for model type, it sets the model container in this scene for storing the provided model type, creating a new container if necessary, and also sets a model context for that container in this scene's environment. So we can see there are two types at play here, the model container and the model context. I guess this is kind of similar to core data, even though, to be honest, I haven't used core data a lot recently, so I'm not like that knowledgeable in core data terminology. So if you know better than me on that topic, please let me know in the chat. So in this example, Recipes app sets a shared model container to use for all of its windows, configured to store instances of Recipe. And I guess in that case, Recipe is kind of like the top level object that the app displays. Because this approach where you create a container giving it a type, it begs the question, what do you do when you have more than one type? But I guess maybe the idea is to have some kind of a root object that represents like the root of your graph object. We'll see if we learn more about it as we go on. So the environment values model context property will be assigned a new context associated with this container. So the model context is available through the environment, okay? All implicit model context operations in this scene, such as query properties, so it's the @query property wrapper we saw just before, will use the environment context. So kind of a similar approach to the fetch request in core data. I mean the @fetch request property wrapper in core data. By default, the container stores its model data persistently on disk. To only store data in memory for the lifetime of the app's process, pass false to the in-memory parameter. So this one right here. So I guess this can be useful if you are doing some testing, either running tests in dev mode or maybe running your app in for your testing suite. The container will only be created once. New values that are passed to the model type and in-memory parameters after the view is first created will be ignored. So this seems to say that the model container is created only once. So then if you like call it other times with other model type and other value for in-memory, it wouldn't change. Okay, so that's kind of interesting. I guess this is one of the key things to understand in order to get how this framework works. Okay, so it seems here item is the top level in the hierarchy. So let's see what it is. So first thing, yeah, I didn't highlight it, but of course we had to import Swift data to be able to use this modifier. So item, we import foundation and Swift data, and we can see we have a class which is an item. There is only one property, which is the timestamp. So I guess when the item has been created, I guess it's the bare minimum you need for a demo app. And so this is annotated with @model, so the Swift macro I was telling you about. So you can see it's a macro. I haven't had time to read a lot of things about macros. I saw there was a session today, but I haven't watched it yet. And definitely, definitely, like this is low level. This is code generation tool, so it is similar to a sorcery. So you would expect it to be to feel low level, and it does feel low level. Let's do a command click and let's see if we get scared. So we see it's only available in Swift 5.9, but that's normal because that's when macros were introduced. We can see it's also only available from iOS 17. So this answers the question, is Swift data backwards compatible? I guess the answer is not. And so this macro, so it's defined in an external Swift package that is part of Swift data, I guess. And so this, you apply it to something, it returns something. I don't know. I'm not sure what to make of this for now, but we don't need to know all the intricate details. The goal is just to discover the framework, and so it's already more than enough to know that when we use this @model, we turn our regular class into something that can be persisted into a persistent store. And finally, the content view. So this is where we have a bit more things than when we just create a standard app, because with a standard app, I think we just have like an image with an SF symbol and hello world. Here we have a bit more things. So let's see. We have the content view. It gets the model context from the environment using this key path right here. And it has an array of items that it gets from the model context using the add query right here, okay? Then a navigation view, a list that iterates over the array of items. And for each item, we display a navigation link towards a text. So the detail view is just a text that says, okay, this is an item created at this timestamp, with the timestamp being formatted nicely to be human readable, okay? We have an on delete so that we can do a swipe to delete. And we have a toolbar with 2 buttons so that we can edit, so put the list into edit mode and add a new item, okay? Add a new item is a function, so what does it do? It does create a new item with the current timestamp and insert it into the model context. And for delete, it deletes the item at the index in the model context, okay? And then we can see the preview with the new preview syntax that is based on macros. So we no longer need to do struct content view underscore preview colon preview providers and everything like that. This is generated automatically for us thanks to this nice little Swift macro. And I can tell you I'm very looking forward to learning more about Swift macros, and I'm thinking about doing another surprise live maybe tomorrow evening to talk about Swift macros. Maybe tomorrow evening, maybe Thursday evening, but doing a let's discover and explore Swift macros is something that I'm quite excited about. We'll see if I have the energy and if I'm satisfied with what I will have done in this first live. So let's try and now show the preview to see what's going to happen. Okay, let's make it more visible. All right, so we have our preview, and when I tap on the plus button, you can see that we are adding new items, okay. When I tap, I can navigate. I'm trying to do the swipe to delete. It also works. And now the big question is, of course, when I relaunch the preview, is it going to be persisted or not? That's something I want to try. So let me get rid of the preview and then restart it. Okay, so the store is not persisted across previews, but it kind of makes sense. Now let's run the app in the simulator and see what's going to happen. So I'm booting up a simulator, so iPhone 14 Pro on iOS 17. So the app is launching. Let's see. So I see, Landon, you've been able to look at the new features in Swift 5.9. So I agree. Swift and if as expression is something I really like. The consume keyword seems interesting and also very complex in a way, or challenging. I'm going to put this into dark mode because, yeah, much better otherwise. Like, there is so much white light. I really don't like how it looks on camera, so that's much better. Okay, so we have the plus button. We can add a lot of items to the list. And so now if I go back to Xcode and relaunch the app in the simulator, okay, we can see that data is being persisted. We can rest assured Swift data does work as expected. And yeah, Frank, I kind of agree. Like, I know Rust only from a very high level point of view, but when I had read about the borrow things, I remember people saying that it was very similar to Rust. And I saw people making some very interesting points today on Twitter, saying that this syntax can be useful to optimize the code, for instance, when dealing with large structs that would need to be copied by default across function calls, that kind of thing. But that's the part where I'm not knowledgeable enough when it comes to low-level performances to really have an informed opinion. Okay, so let's see what we could do. I tried to come up with an original idea for what to do in this live stream, and then I realized that it's hard to have an original idea, especially when you've been working a lot on content creation for the last 24 hours. So I figured, let's do what everyone else is already doing. Let's make a to-do app, but at least this should allow us to see a few more features of Swift data. So let's go ahead with this to-do app. So how should we go about it? I guess we are going to go back to the code. Maybe go back to the item first. Okay, I'm lost in Xcode. Okay, so I have the item, and first I'm going to rename it. What's nice is that because we're also discovering Xcode 15, at any point we can discover a new thing, like maybe the refactoring has changed its UI or things like that. Doesn't seem to be the case. So I'm calling it to-do item instead of just item, okay? Now I'm going to add a few new properties. So I will have a label, which will be a string. So I'm kind of doing it, taking inspiration from the Apple Reminders app, even though arguably there are not that many different ways to do your basic to-do app. So you need a label and you need an isDone property, which will be a Boolean. Let's see if I can give it a default value of false, for instance. Okay, that seems to work. Of course, this init now is no longer good enough. I need a better member-wise initializer. And so I guess this is actually where I will be providing my default values. So by default, here this will be false. And here I guess I will want to have an empty string as the default. Because in terms of UX, I would like when I tap on the plus button, I get the new item and I get the focus on the text field. So let's see how to implement this. What do I need to update here? So it's here, this thing right here. So this label that I need to update. You know what? I'm wondering whether I shouldn't actually do things. Now I'm going to do things the structured way. So I'm going to create a new SwiftUI view. I will call it to-do item row, like that. Okay, this way we can also see what happens when we create like new views in Xcode 15. So instead of the hello world, I will want a way to display the data. So definitely this will need a binding. This will need a binding to a to-do item. Gonna call it like this. No, more like that. Okay, so I will need a binding. We'll see if this is indeed the syntax we still use when we want to implement a data flow between parent view and child view using Swift data. So here we have our binding like this for the to-do item. Then what else do we need? I guess that's all that we need. We need to fix the preview. So here we are going to have a constant to-do item. You know what? Can I declare a let? Can I do a let value here? So let to-do item equal to-do item. Let's see if it works or not. When completion doesn't suggest it, it doesn't feel like it's a very good thing. So date, and for the label, let's say, I don't know, buy pizza maybe. This way I can put a nice little emoji like that. Okay, we get a weird error message, which lets me think that what I'm trying to do is probably not allowed. So let's do it like that. I will just indent the code a bit more so that it's more readable, because we don't have that much screen real estate on the YouTube stream. Okay. Is it better now? Yeah, interestingly, we have an error. So to-do item does not conform to protocol persistent model. Let's see what's happening here. So this is when the magic starts breaking. So persistent model. Why binding? That's a good question. Why binding? Because I'm planning to put a text field so that we can easily edit. But you know what? Maybe I'm getting ahead of myself, and just editing in the detail view now would be better. I don't know. Let's see how I can fix this issue first. So what could be the issue? Maybe it's because of the default values for the arguments here. I don't know. So if I try to build, I still get the error. All right. Let me try and get rid of these. Okay. So I still get build fail, but it seems like this error, it seems like it's gone. And instead, it's here where I need to provide. Okay, so I need to provide the value for the is done and set it to false. I still have build failed. Right, I'm just going to clear because, you know, like you never know. No, to clean rather. Yes, clean, and don't ask me again. Do you want to add protocol stubs? Yes. Could I try and do this? So what could be the issue? I mean, when you look at it, I didn't do anything that different than before. Before we had just the timestamp. I added a string and a boolean. Could it be because like boolean cannot be stored by default? I don't know. Let's try and remove the boolean. Okay. It seems I still get a build failed. So I really want to do things like, you know what, I'm just going to comment all the code here so that I can do things really, really, really incrementally. So let's see. Okay, now there is an error here. So for the label, I want to have just an empty string. Okay, so now it's working again. So it seems that this is working. So let's see. If I try and put back the boolean, I keep getting a build succeed. Okay. If I add the is done argument, so like, yeah, but it's what's so weird. Oh no, it's because, okay, is done is referring to itself. Okay, I was like, where is this is done coming from? Okay. So if I go back to my content view, and for the is done, I put a value of false. Let's see. Okay, everything builds. All right. Now let's see. Was it because of the default value to false? No. This is still working. Okay. Here it's still working. Maybe it was because of something else. I don't know. It's so weird. So if I get rid of this right now. Okay. Actually, the timestamp, you know what? I could get rid of it because I won't be using it. So let me get rid of it. I need to get rid of it also here. All right. and in the content view, so I can just create a to-do item and rely solely on the default values, all right? And so here I have an error when it says, oh yes, because here I'm still using the timestamp in both places. All right, let me remove these things and see. Okay, having an empty view works. All right. So I'm still, I haven't understood why it said that it didn't confirm to @modal. Yeah, that's a bit weird. At least we have learned something. It's that we can get some very cryptic error messages. I hope they will get better. Like this error message will improve over time. It kind of reminds me of result builders at the very beginning. I mean, they're still like. The errors you can get with result builders are still quite cryptic today, but they were even worse at the beginning. Yeah, exactly like you're saying, Jan. Like when it's the first beta, you never know like if the error is because of you or because of Xcode, and very unreliable. Okay, so now let's go back to implementing our to-do item row. Okay, so here indeed there is no longer a timestamp. All right, like this. Perfect. Right now I will just remove the binding to be able to do things like more simply and just have a let constant. So this way I can get rid of the extra binding here. Let's see if I wanted to get rid of the now unneeded extra level of indentation, something like that. Perfect. Okay, let's resume the preview and let's try and get it a preview layout, which will be like a fixed size with like maybe a width of 300 and a height of 100, something like that. Let's see how would that look like. Maybe something about being hashable, yeah. But that's weird because date, what you're saying, because date was already there at the beginning, it was working. So that's why like so weird. Okay, the preview, it's not happy. What did I do wrong? Oh, look, the error is back. It's no, now the error is gone. Okay. So yeah, I'm glad I called it like an exploration live stream because it's definitely not a training session. Let's see if we can make it. Can I get more details? Fail to build to do item row. So it's the extension to do item row. I guess it's because of the preview or something like that. It talks about timestamp somewhere. You know what? I'm just going to clean. You're saying try decline to do item in preview as a separate static let constant. Yeah, but it's so weird because it's just the argument I'm passing to this. It's just the argument I'm passing to this view. I mean, label is done. Okay. Maybe it's just like you know what? Maybe it's just the default value. And if I get rid of them, okay, we are still stuck. I did not expect this, to be honest. I expected to have issues, but not that early on. I don't know, maybe it's when I put the preview. No, it's not when I put the preview layout. Okay. So type to do item does not conform to protocol persistent model. What could I be missing here? You know what? Let me get rid of the boolean for now. This way, like we can just do it like that. Okay, even without the boolean, I still get an error. And you are saying try declaring. So there could be indeed like a migration issue, but I would expect it to happen at runtime. I see also people saying the final keyword, but it was there by default when I created. Yeah, it was there by default when I created the template, and it was working then. Let's see. I see some people saying, so Yan, you're saying, or try creating a static placeholder with the model class. Try declaring to do item in preview as a separate static let constant. It may be let properties. So let's see that. If I put this back as a var, maybe. Yeah, no. If I get rid of the preview. Oh, whoa. It seems it's the preview that causes issue. Like, it's so weird. It's so weird. I don't understand why. I guess it might be linked to the macros, you know, like doing things under the hood, and maybe I don't know, like the two macros, the preview and the preview macro and the model macro, like kind of like parasiting each other, interfering with each other in a bad way. But that's so weird. All right, we'll do without it. So for the to-do item row, let's do it very simply. Okay, so you're saying like you're pretty sure the problem is how I instantiate to-do item in the preview. So you were suggesting, I'm trying to find the suggestion. So try creating a static placeholder within the model class. Okay, so I'm gonna try and do what you were suggesting. So I go into my to-do item and I do like extension on my to-do item. Okay. Then I do like a static let placeholder of type to-do item, and it's going to be this. So it seems to work. And here for the to-do item, I can do placeholder like that. Okay. Do you have like an idea of like the root cause? I guess it's because when we call the init in the preview, this init is not just the init I've defined, but there has been things added to it by the Swift macros that we have called on it. But it's so weird. And you are saying insert model container in the preview. So it wouldn't work without a model container. That's interesting. I would have thought that, of course, you cannot save without a model container, but you would still be able to create an instance of the class without a model container. So I'm going to also put back my code to have a better sizing of the preview. Okay. And hopefully, oh damn it! Of course, it kept crashing. Is it so? I don't know. Is it this thing? Okay, what's the issue this time? All right. Fail to find a currently active container. Okay, so it seems that indeed. So Dalton, you had a good hunch. The issue is that I don't have a model container to put it in. Okay, so I guess I should do something like that. So to do item self. I think I can just pass like. Do I need to put like autosave enabled or not? Here it wasn't provided, so I guess I can just omit it. And so I guess I would need to import Swift data indeed, or at least in the preview. So let's see. Actually, yeah, it's part of Swift data. Yes. Is it going to work this time? No, we still get an error. fail to find a currently active container for to-do item. Okay. You know what? I'm thinking maybe I will ditch the preview and just go with the simulator, because my goal was to show you a bit of Swift data. And here, for now, I've been showing you mostly how to fight with Xcode 15, which was not the topic I had planned. So let me put the simulator like this. I think I can put it so that it's always on top. Let's see. I'm searching for the... where is this setting? Stay on top. All right. So to-do item row, you know what? Let me add something here. Okay. So you know what? I want to try what you suggested, just to see like if it works. So model container and in memory. So in memory set to true. Let's see. Yeah, no, it seems like there is a problem here. Okay, I'm gonna go with the simulator. It seems like the safest option. So my to-do item row, what do I want it to look like? I'm going to go back to what I wanted to do initially. So to have a binding for my to-do item. Okay, then instead of a text, I'm gonna want to have a text field. So here I will need kind of a placeholder. What could I put for the placeholder? Task name. Yeah, it's definitely not the best. I don't think it puts. When I'm thinking about it, I don't think iOS puts anything for that placeholder. It just gives the focus to the text field. And so for the text, that's where I will do $todoitem.label. Okay. Let me put a bit of padding around this text field. And if I want it to get the focus, I guess I will focus on that just after. Okay, so here now for the label, you know what? I'm going to get rid of the navigation link actually, and I will just have my to-do item row, and I pass in the item. Okay. Okay, let's see. Build failed. Yes, because now I need to, I guess, pass it like that. Uh-huh. So how do I get? Because it's not an add state. That's the thing. If this was add state, no, it still wouldn't work. I mean, there is a syntax to be able to do this. It's so annoying because I'm pretty sure it's that. I mean, I could just, if I had add state, doesn't this syntax exist when you want to take, you have an array and you want to get an array of bindings from it? So there is this thing called bindable. You're saying that we should use. So I guess there have been some new things. Let's see. I'm looking into the documentation. So for bindable, maybe not at the Swift data level, maybe at a higher level. If I search for bindable, no, I don't get anything. If I do at bindable, or if I just go back to the doc of Swift data, So model context, okay. Maybe on query. No, it's just a description of the fields. Also looking a bit at the doc. So you were saying that oh yeah, okay, it's because of the private, but okay. So this syntax, wait. Oh, because I need to provide something. Okay. Why isn't this working? And you will need to provide it. I'm completely destroying my code just to test my hypothesis. Okay, so this would work. All right. So when you have an add_state property, this is the syntax to get an array of bindings from your array of just regular values. And so you indeed need to put the dollar in these three places. But I guess this only works with add_state and not with what I'm trying to achieve now. But this is maybe where this @bindable comes into play. So I'm going to put the code back like it was. Okay. So something like that. Here I want to get rid of it. And let me go back to the docs where I was trying to see if there could be something. But that's for the storage. Try model container. Model context. So that's for inserting, fetching, okay. How do I pass it to something else? Okay, let's see this @bindable thing. I'm trying to find it. So bindable, something like that. Trying to see if I search maybe at this level. Not really. Oh yes, SwiftUI bindable. So a property wrapper that supports creating bindings to the mutable properties of observable objects. So this is for observable objects. So I guess maybe, so that's an interesting point. So like the bindable is for viewModel class, but in a way maybe the @model creates something that is kind of similar to what we would call a viewModel because we still have a class. So maybe here instead of an yeah, it's true that I was making a mistake because we are with a reference type. So with a value type like a struct, @binding would have made sense, but probably not with a reference type. And so here it's probably this @bindable that we want actually. Okay. Okay, so now it works. So indeed, yeah, it took me a bit of time to like put the pieces together, but you were right with the @bindable solution. And so let's see. Now I have the text field, and I could write something like, okay, I'm typing on the keyboard, but nothing is happening. Let me try and get, yeah. Okay, at least this works this way. So buy pizza, okay. And when you hit enter, you can get rid of it. All right, if I relaunch the app, hopefully everything should still be there. All right, so the persistence layer kind of works. Now, next step is that I want to add the Boolean that will deal with is done, and then I want to implement some sorting that will happen depending on whether the item is done or not. So let's see. We will do it like in a very simple way, because I don't want to implement something that is too complex. So let's see here. I will put the text field into an H tag. I saw that there was something like no, I saw something like embed in H tag yesterday, but I cannot find it back. That's not a problem. We're going to do it manually. So like that. All right, I put it in an H tag. So we keep the text field, and next to it, I will put a button. This button, I will go with the title action for now. So title will be, so it's going to depend. It will be like to do item dot is done. If it's done, then it's going to be done, and then it's still going to be like to do. It's not the best, but at least like it should do the job. And so for the action, like that, and for the action we will do to do item dot is done dot toggle, so that if the boolean is true, we set it to false. If it's false, we set it to true. Okay. Now let's see what we should be doing. I guess the padding should go on the H tag. Okay. Making a bit of room. Let's relaunch. Let's see how it looks like now. Okay, so we can go from to do to done. All right, that's not perfect, but that's still something. Let's just give a bit of style to the button here. So I guess I could do something like font maybe, and give it like I don't know. I want it to have like a little bit more of weight. So you know what? I'm just going to first do the color that will already be pretty good. Oh, I can just do, okay, font weight like that. So put it with bold. Yeah, I don't want to set like a text style that would be like headline or anything, because that's not like semantically correct, but this is better. And I never remember if it's either foreground color or tint color, and apparently it's been deprecated. Now it's foreground style. So something like that. If I just go maybe with tint color, okay, tint and blue. Let's see. So the bold part worked, the foreground didn't, but since I want to keep things simple, I'm still going to use the deprecated API. This way, at least, yeah, at least it works. Okay, so we have our to-do, and let's see if it works across. Yes, all right, and maybe like check the mailbox, something like that. Check mail box. Okay. Perfect. And now let's try and do the sorting depending on whether is done is set to true or false. So this should happen with the query. And so let's see which arguments we can add to the query. There are way too many things. Maybe I'm just going to do a command click to see. So on the query, we can pass it a filter, a sort. So that's the sort that I want, and then the order. And maybe I will need to build a custom order, so it will be interesting. So for the sort, it's going to be sorted on is done. But I don't know if it's possible or not. So I guess it cannot infer the type, so I need to do something like that. Cannot convert value of type to expected argument. So maybe it's not just like that you do a sort. You know what? I'm going to just go back to the implementation. So sort, it's indeed a key path, okay. Yes, it's just a key path and the value must be comparable. I don't know if bool is comparable. You know what? Let's try and check that. Okay, it's sendable, but maybe, I don't know if it's comparable. It's equatable, it's hashable, it's codable. Maybe it's not comparable. So I guess, you know what? Maybe I will just make it comparable, even though it's not the. So I guess making Boolean comparable is way too broad, but what we can do is we can make to-do item conform to comparable. Yes, here's what we're going to do. So we're gonna make it conform to comparable, and for the implementation, we're gonna say, okay, so it's like, it's gonna be if the left-hand side is set to done. I never remember, like, it's a Boolean formula, but it's like, if you consider that 0 is false and 1 is true, then for the left-hand side to be strictly less than the right-hand side, you need the left-hand side to be false. So like that. And you need the right-hand side to be true. Something like that. You can write it like in a much shorter way using like a question mark operator, and just here the is true equal true is not needed, but at least it's more clear. So this way it's comparable, and this way here when I will want to sort, I can say that it sorts using the key path self. Okay, and this time it works. So when I do that, it's just like doing to do item then self, and it's a key path that returns the object itself. So, you know, kind of like when in a closure, you just return $0, same ID. So here you're saying you use to compare two instances, you just use the instances themselves. Okay, and then for the order, so here is going to be, I guess, forward or reverse. No, it should be reverse actually, because when the Boolean is set to true, we want them to appear first. So I guess it's reverse, but we'll see. We'll see what it's going to do. Is it going to work or not? Ah, fatal error. Couldn't find to-do item self on to-do item with fields. Okay, so I guess it doesn't. That's interesting. Maybe our class is transformed in some kind of tuple or something like that, because yeah, there is label. Okay, so it's not working. How else could I do it? Because if I do is done, then it's not gonna work. But if I go into here and I do maybe like I make bool comparable. So here is going to be bool and bool like that. And it will just be left-hand side and right-hand side. Okay, so now it works. Even though making a Boolean comparable, I would say it's going to give like a bit of side effect that is a bit broad, but we can see. Okay, so actually it's the done that appear on the top. So I want the other way, so it's not reverse, it's forward. Okay, and now when we tap, so the order is indeed changing. We're going to add, of course, a bit of animations. So this should be pretty simple. I guess it's just here the call to toggle that should be put within a with animation call, something like that. Okay, this is much better. And let's see. I would like also to do a strike through when a strike through of the text when it's done. So here, strike through, and for the is active, it will be whether to do item is done. Let's see that. Build failed. Why? Oh, okay, it's because you don't need to say is active. All right. Okay, that's pretty cool. Honestly, that's pretty cool when you think about it. All right. And then we can still edit the text. Okay, we have a basic to-do app that's working. Now let's see what else we could do. And for that, let's take a look maybe at the other properties or other features that Swift Data offers. So let me put this full screen. Yeah, interestingly, Swift Data has a built-in support of optional, which is pretty cool because when I used Realm, for instance, I remember that optionals were kind of annoying to deal with because I don't think it's supported like optional out of the box, and you had to use a special optional type from Realm, which wasn't that great. So we could try adding an ID, maybe something like that, or relationships. What are they? So aside from enforcing unique constraints, attributes support, among other, preserving deleted values, spotlight indexing, and encryption. You can also, okay, so no, it's more this one. When a model contains an attribute whose type is also a model or a collection of models, Swift Data implicitly manages the relationship between the models, those models for you. By default, the framework sets relationship attributes to nil after you delete a related model instance. To specify different deletion rule, annotate the property with relationship macro. So by default, it's going to set it to nil when you delete it. But if you want to delete any related accommodations when deleting a trip, so you would do cascade. And so like when you delete the parent relation, the parent object, it would in cascade delete all of the child objects. So kind of like when you have an ownership relationship. Okay. Swift Data persists all non-computed attributes of a model by default, but you may not always want this to happen. For example, one or more properties on a class may only ever contain temporary data that doesn't need saving, such as the current weather at an upcoming trip destination. In such scenarios, annotate those properties with the transient macro, and Swift Data won't write their value to disk. So something that is quite common with persistent framework. So if you have some data that you need to access at runtime and it's convenient to access it on the instance, but you don't want it to be saved, you can annotate the property with @transient. Okay. Let's see what we could do. Oh, okay. So I was saying, what do we do when we have more than one type to deal with? So we can pass in an array. So that could be useful. Okay. There is the autosave enabled, so I guess that's why we didn't need to call save on the context, you see, because on the model context there is also a save method. And if you look at the documentation, there is no documentation. Let's see if I do alt click. Okay, there is nothing, but I guess when you do autosave, you don't need to call it explicitly. And I guess that the model container we created here, so autosave is set to true by default. Okay, let me go back to the doc. So we have the container, right? If a model type contains a relationship, you may omit the destination model type from the array. Swift Data automatically traverses the model relationships and includes any destination model types for you. So it's really this idea of that here you put like what are the roots of your object graph. But yeah, you only need to put like the roots, but anything that can be reached from these roots, you don't need to put. Okay. And if you want to create custom storage, you can create your own model container. All right. Save model for later use, so using the model context. The trip, okay. maybe we could do things like around dates. Maybe that could be interesting because I would like to do something around predicates. That's what I would like to show you also, because we did the querying, but we didn't use the predicates. To use the predicates, what would be, I guess, the typical use case for it would be to implement a search. So let's try and do this. Let's see how we can do it. So yeah, the predicate, you need to create it and then run it. So we'll need to add a search bar to our content view. This should be pretty easy by doing the searchable API. So just after the toolbar, if I do something like searchable, so something like that. So here I will have an at state private var, so search text, I'm going to call it, because if I call it search query, it's kind of confusing with this other query right here. So it's going to be string. So I guess, I don't know if I need to give it a default value or not. Yeah, I guess I need to give it a default value because this expects a binding to string and not a binding to optional string. So this is going to be search text like that. Let's make sure that it builds. You know, now I'm doing things very incrementally. Okay, so we have the search right here. And now let's see. So I will need to perform my search. The select an item, I wonder, yeah, I think it's there if you want to use it with a master detail pattern, but I don't need it. So I'm going to remove it so it is just like better. So what I'm gonna want to do is, I guess I want to do an onChange off. I'm just looking for the search. So we have search completion. Okay, so it's when the user has typed enter, but search suggestion, so to return, like a suggestions view, but maybe I don't need that. You know what? I will just do a onChange off. From what I understand, there are new variants of onChange off, because it used to be onChange off a value and then a closure, and so now you can opt in or opt out of being called for the initial value, which is kind of interesting. And then you can, I guess you get the old value and the new value also in the query. Yeah, you can get the old value and the new value, because it's true that it always felt a bit weird that, I mean, in the query you would get the value, and so I guess in the query, in the closure, so I guess the closure had the new value and the variable the old value, and so it was a bit confusing. So I guess it's better to have either this version, which I guess is called once the property has the new value, or this one, which I guess is called like maybe before, but you have the old value and the new value. So I'm going to use this one, which I guess is what I want. So it will be search text. And for the action, I will want to do my search here. So let's go here and try to use the fetch descriptor right here. So let's see, I'm just copy and pasting. So I do have my context available. So of course, it's not going to be upcoming trips. It's going to be filtered to-dos. So it's a fetch descriptor for to-do item. And so for the predicate, I guess I'm going to do $0 dot label dot is it has prefix? Yes, it has prefix. And so for the prefix, it will be the search text like that. And for the sort, I will still sort on is done like before. Okay. Cannot infer key path. So here, maybe I need to do like a to-do item is done. I don't know. No. So what is this sort? If I go back to Safari, so it was the start date. So it was a sort on the trip. I'm not sure. Do I actually need to provide a sort? Does it work without it? Interesting. The has prefix function is not supported in this predicate. Okay. So I guess inside the predicate you cannot use whatever you want. And if I still go with prefix, if I go, I don't know, maybe if I go with contains, so contains with a regex, no. Not contains where. So no, I guess it would be like, or maybe if I just do equal equal, but I mean equal equal, like it's not that great. But at least it builds. Okay, it's not that great, but maybe it should allow us to do something with this. And then what do I do with my filtered to-dos? So I need to get my results using the context. So something like that, I guess. So the context here, it's called the model context, and it's called filtered to-dos. So I have my results. Okay, so this can throw, so just going to force everything. Of course, don't do this in your real app. And for the results, let's see. What do I do for the results? Where do I put this? I guess I would want to have another at state. So you know what? I'm going to bring a bit of order here. So another at state private var, which will be filtered filtered to-dos, which will also be an array of to-do item with a default value of the empty array. This way here I can actually save this here. And one last thing, if I want to display this, so I guess it's with the searchable. Do I have a modifier to show the result? Like, so it's search completion, not the one I want. Search suggestions. I guess this could make it, yeah. So I guess for this one, I will just do kind of like the same thing, except that I will show my filtered to-dos here. But it's weird because, I mean, it's an array of... it won't be happy because here it's expecting a binding, I think. Oh, I've made it. Do I need to do self? Cannot assign change let to var filtered to-dos. Okay, now it's working. Oh, it's because... Okay, because I gave the same name to these two things, which is a bad practice. I'm going to rename this. How can I rename it? I'm going to rename it filter to do fetch descriptor. It's a bit long, but at least it's it does the job. I'm realizing I'm covering the code a bit. Sorry for that. Okay, let's relaunch this and see how this is going. So we have the search. If I start typing, so I will need to type everything for it to work. So that kind of sucks, but let's see. Does it work at least? It doesn't display anything, so that's not great. And I'm a bit sad by the fact that I cannot use like has prefix here. You know what? I would like to set a breakpoint to understand what's happening. So if I do this, I would really like to see what's inside filtered to-dos. So let me just put this a little bit bigger. Let's get rid of the console. Let's put the breakpoint actually on that line. Okay, so here we have nothing in the array, it seems. Still nothing in the array. I'm just going to keep typing until I've typed everything. And this one normally, not that one, but this one with the X, I should have gotten something into self, but even self, I don't see my my add state property, so that's not that great, to be honest. That's not that great. Wait, I just noticed something, is that, no, I was like, there is only one element that seems to be shown, but yeah, it doesn't seem to work. Okay. So filter to-dos, it seems we don't have that many things. What I'm gonna do is try and print this. I'm gonna show the console so that we can see what's happening. So empty array, check mailbox. Okay, we keep getting an empty array. I'm gonna create a new one and I will just call it A, so that it's very easy to search for it. You see, like, oh, wait, something happened. Something was displayed. Okay, so actually, I guess I want to simplify it even more, and I'm just going to get rid of. So here, instead of a to-do item row, I will just put a text with item.label, because I guess there's a problem of size for the row. But here, if I type A, okay, you can see that A has been found, and the other one, maybe check. Oh, because there is a trailing white space after check mailbox. That's why. So maybe if I do this, get ready. Okay, so at least it works. The ergonomics isn't great because we would really want to do a prefix test than just like an equality test. So let me just retry it. Okay, so it says build failed. Can I get more detail on why the build failed? So this function is not supported in this predicate. So let's see. Can we get more information from the predicate itself? So there is a body, okay, which is some kind of input. Okay. So is it like any kind of function that is forbidden? Like if I call something else, I don't know. If I call like elements equal, like something like that. Not even sure whether it would build. Yeah, no, it doesn't. Okay, but also you cannot call it. So I guess inside the predicate, things are a bit limited. I'm gonna want to look at the docs for predicates. Maybe there is more information. So overview, a predicate is a logical condition that evaluates to a Boolean value, true or false. You use predicates for operations like filtering a collection or searching for matching elements. To create a predicate, use the predicate macro, for example, so like here, but we can see that they use indeed only like operators like less than or equal or and, so maybe functions cannot be used. Oh, we see to have a whitelist. So in the example above, the closure that contains the predicate conditions take one argument, the value being tested. Even though you write the predicate using a closure, the macro transforms that closure into a predicate when you compile. The code in the closure isn't run as part of your program. So that's why we cannot do like anything, but we have starts with, so maybe that's what I want to use in that case. Okay, so that kind of makes sense because I guess the idea is that the predicate will be evaluated in a database, and so database, like they want to evaluate the predicate in a way that's kind of fast, so that they are able to to run their query in quickly, and so it's not going to be able to like call any arbitrary Swift function. You need to call something that can be translated into a database query, basically. So that's why we have only some kind of queries that are allowed. And yeah, Frank, totally agree, is going to be start Swift that we're going to be using. But we can still use so all of the typical operator. We can use the optionals, which is kind of great because this is often where like the ergonomics of persistence framework can break when you need to deal with optionals. But I think I've said that a bit before. Casting also, sequence operations. Okay, so we have all satisfy, filter, contains where, and starts with, which is kind of good because contains where you still pass it a closure. So there is still some level of arbitrary things happening, and then subscripting and accessing members. A predicate can contain any nested declarations, use any flow control such as for loops, or modify variables from its enclosing scope. However, it can refer to constants that are in the scope. To express more complex queries, you can nest expressions in the predicate. So something like this, okay? So yeah, so basically like the closure you pass in to the predicate, you can see it as something that will be turned into a database query. So it will be like turned into some kind of query string or something like that. So this is definitely a use case where Swift macros make it possible, because I was telling you at the beginning that I had implemented a framework called KeePathKit, which would create a predicate from operators, but it was just like wrapping something into Swift code, but it was not able to inspect the code and turn it into a querying language. So this shows how powerful macros are in Swift, and it also shows that writing good macros must be quite a complex task because you're basically writing a small compiler in a way. So let's go back to Xcode now that we know what to do. So instead of has prefix, we want to use starts with. So apparently we can also pass in a regex, but I guess string must conform to regex component, but the fact we can deal with a regex adds even more power to it. Okay. Doesn't work. The starts with function is not supported in this predicate. So is the documentation lying, or maybe I don't know. Yeah, contains filter and starts with. It's supposed to work, but maybe like it's not implemented yet. That could be also possible. I'm also looking to see if there are other overloads, but no, there is starts with, and oh, there are two things. So starts with and starts with sequence and by. So this thing, but this one, yeah, I need to provide the by, but I don't want to provide the by because I don't want to provide this comparison function. So I don't know, maybe like it's a known issue and it's not working for now. I'm a bit sad, to be honest, that it doesn't work, because I really wanted to show you this thing at play. And oh, interesting! You can safely encode and decode predicates, pass predicates across concurrencies boundaries, and load the predicate from a file. So if you want to store like if some preferences of the user translate to some predicate, you can persist them. That's pretty cool. And to define a list of types and key paths that are allowed when reading an archive predicate, use predicate codable configuration. So if you're using a key path, I guess you still need to make that key path codable, because key paths are not codable from what I remember. Okay. And you can transform a predicate into another representation, for example, to express a predicate in another query language, or to create a modified predicate. So it seems predicates are pretty powerful. And you were saying, Frank, that's for sequences, maybe it doesn't apply to strings. So since it's a string, what if I do something like, I don't know, like as sequence? Am I allowed to do that? No, I think it doesn't work. Yeah, because then it doesn't know that it's a sequence of characters. Okay. So I need to transform the string into a sequence if I want to use the star swift. So I'm gonna try and do this. So let's see. I'm gonna clean because it seems like I broke Xcode. Now it expects a comma separator. What? Did I break something? What happened? I'm going to just... Oh, it's because of this. Okay, it's because I added this extra opening parenthesis. All right. And now I just get the same error than before. You know what? I'm just going to see here if there is anything. Oh, maybe. And I was saying maybe it's because I'm getting the search text, but it was already working before. Oh, you cannot see. Sorry. I'm going to put the code like this. Okay, that should be much better. So creating a character sequence. Yeah, maybe I could try it. So let's see that. I'm gonna put the code like this, and then I'm gonna do so let sequence equal $0 dot label dot make iterator. So this actually builds, and predicate body may only contain one expression. Okay, so you can only have one expression in the predicate. You cannot create local variables, which kind of is kind of what Frank was saying. Like it won't let you do that. Just going back to the documentation here to see if there is anything else I could do. I want to try and use maybe like all satisfy or filter or contains, maybe. Like what happens if I do like filter, for instance? Oh, there is a new predicate version of filter that uses a macro, I guess. But if I do something, you know what? Just going to return always true. Let's see what's going to happen. Cannot convert value of type string. What? Yeah, so you were suggesting I do $0 dot label dot make iterator. Yeah, but from an iterator you cannot do a start swift. From the iterator you can just call like you can call next basically. Now I see people saying like if this is how it is, I will go with core data. Remember that we are seeing like a beta software. It's still even a private beta, so it's not even open to anyone beside developers. So bugs are to be expected at this level. But it's true that it's a bit frustrating because it's the last thing I wanted to show you. Something that does work. Let me see. I'm gonna go on Google and do I want to write Swift data predicate and maybe starts with. Let's see. So nothing. I mean, it's expected to not find like articles yet. I'm just going to look for predicate. No, I mean it's a beta software, so I wouldn't expect people to have started to talk about it. We just have, okay, this Myths of Swift Data video. Let's see. I'm just going to look to see if we can get the slides maybe. So yeah, this is the overview of Swift Data. What's new? What's new? I don't want to play the video because I'm afraid it's copyrighted. Can we get at least the transcript to see if they talk about predicates somewhere? I'm going to search for predicate. Okay, it seems like they don't talk about predicate. You know what? I'm seeing it's already 1 hour and a half of live stream. So maybe I will just like leave it there for today. But at least it was interesting to explore Swift Data with you. As with any new software that is still in beta, it wasn't without its frustration and banging your head against the wall. But my feedback is that I don't know. I would say, like, of course it's in beta, so you don't want to judge it by how it is right now, but there is some interesting potential. It seems the integration with Swift is pretty good. The syntax to create the predicate, even though we had some bugs, there is still potential in it, in the sense that we can write predicates in Swift, but Swift Data will be able to optimize them into a query language, and so we have kind of a good compromise, at least an interesting compromise between type safety and performances. So now I guess I'm looking forward. To see like how it's going to get better. I do hope that it's going to get better. I hope you've enjoyed this exploration. I might do other explorations on new WWDC topic in the coming days or weeks. If you have any ideas or requests of frameworks, language features, anything that you would like me to explore, please let me know in the comments or on social media. And I guess I just have to say thank you for watching this exploration of Swift Data. Enjoy the rest of your WWDC week, and see you next time. Bye bye.